Continents will be formed. Oceans will overflow. And volcanoes will erupt. When the forces of good and evil collide. As Hercules, champion of the gods, fulfills his destiny on Earth, across the heavens, and in hell, the incredible Ferrigno is the incredible Hercules, the strongest man on Earth. Rated PG.
Now playing at selected theaters and drive-ins. Check news.
Welcome back to the Drive-In Asylum double feature, and thank you for returning after watching our first feature, Penitentiary 3. It's another stunning Cannon film, and Sam and I are welcoming guest Austin Trunick of the Cannon Film Guide. We're real glad he's on tonight's show, so welcome back, Austin.
Thank you.
Wow, we've been taken on a journey into the life of Too Sweet. Man, I think for Halloween I'm gonna have to get in shape to dress as the evil boxer from the end of the movie. Get that whatever that red thing to cover myself up with properly.
The very flattering red thing.
Yeah. Perhaps I can get training from a small man inside a little wall. Maybe that'll be Cubby. Will be just Cubby's eyes going back and forth as he trains me and teaches me. The Midnight Thud, that's his new nickname.
Just get somebody slam a doorknob in your stomach over and over again.
You say you're going to get your kids to do that for you? I mean, in prison you got to learn how to train in different ways, and maybe it's you getting hit in the stomach. Yeah, no pain, no gain.
We saw at the end how he used every bit of Midnight Thud's training to beat his opponent in the end. So it was all valid. It was all useful.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, his training was a lot less sinister than Drunken Master, which is like, it's at some point in some of the Drunken Master ripoffs, it's less training and more just outright beating on people and doing horrible things to people.
I think Alexa will bring back a lot of results for Cameo, Steve, if you're searching for a red codpiece, like Larry Blackman was fond of wearing in Cameo. His were more modest though than the villain in this movie.
Yeah, it was really something. So yeah, I'm glad. In the chat, if anyone tells us, is this your first time watching Penitentiary 3, and what did you think about it? First to last, Becca just said to Becca, maybe one of Becca's movies. We're going to watch all three of them together.
I know, I got to see the work.
That was a brutal take, Becca.
You'll like them all. Mandy asked, how did Jessup go from an animal with bad teeth to a well-hygienated prison Yoda? Great question. I think.
Thank you.
I mean, at one point, he smoked so much crack that he killed a mouse. I think that's why Becca got it. That's where they lost Becca. She's like, oh, that little rat is so cute. And I'm like, just like an Italian movie, canon movies are similar. As soon as a small animal walks on screen, they're doomed. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, boy.
Yeah. Except for the armadillo in Invasion USA. That thing survives. It survives exploding house.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess just maybe rehabilitation does work for the Midnight Thud, or maybe he had to recognize that Too Sweet was the Padawan that he had been looking for to pass on these door slamming to the guts. Everything is, you know what? I'm happy to learn that everything in a man is right here. So I have built the proper protection. Yeah, my primordial pouch, like Elvis has, what cats have to protect their guts.
I mean, maybe all he had to do was just stop smoking crack for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. How did he get crack? Did they fund it? Did Anthony Gary send him crack?
Sure, the guy in the red.
Well, they walked it in with all the gold paintings that they brought in.
His cell looks like Twin Peaks, but you were talking about Twin Peaks earlier. It's very Twin Peaks. And we were talking about it while we were watching, like, Anthony Gary was a major star at one point in the, like, he was the biggest star outside of maybe Susan Lucci in daytime. Like the ratings on the Luke and Laura wedding were like unbelievable.
Yeah, I feel like there was probably a period from like the early 80s to like the early 90s where he was probably on the cover of at least one of those little magazines at like the supermarket checkout counters at all times.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely where my awareness comes from.
But this was after that part of his career, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was like him trying, like, I think he took a break from General Hospital, like, to do this and Disorderlies and UHF and very eclectic string of movies, which I guess were, if you were going to try to distance yourself from like the daytime soap scene,
He
that was
jumped in at the
successful.
deep end. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I really love him in this though, because he definitely goes for it in every scene. Like he is like a whisper scream kind of guy, and he's great. I mean, he's really good in it. And I agree. Chris brought up too. It's like, yeah, Luke did rape Laura. I mean, the '80s. Anytime people say things are problematic, like the '80s, like defined it. It was a weird time to be alive. But yeah, I love him in this. I love his robes. He has a lot of costume changes too. And when we were talking at the end of the movie, they definitely set up for a sequel, and they worked on it for some time, right, to try to get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what. So we were talking right before we came back on that Jama and Leon were talking about doing a Penitentiary 4 around like 2013, 2014 before Jama died. And I'm curious what, if any of the people watching at home have any ideas of where they could have gone with the plot of a Penitentiary 4 after this.
Wow.
I'm really curious if we can crowdsource the plot of a potential fourth movie.
Well, if they had carried on with the fantastic element of this film, like there could have been something even more outrageously fantastic in Penitentiary 4, like it's in outer space.
Yeah, Chris just said in space. They're using prison labor to create the space program to build the tiles onto a space shuttle. Somehow Too Sweet whisked into space.
Midnight Thud's there to teach him how to fight in weightlessness.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, he is an alien, and it's proven in this, and that's how he can switch. And there's an alien, like ethereal form of him. Voodoo. John brought up Voodoo. I think Voodoo is another great place to take this too. Also, I think Jungle Prison, like the Hot Box, is another one. I think too. I really think that they could have got. We talked before we started. It's like, does Too Sweet become the mentor, and do we have like, you know? It feels like it'd be a very direct video sequel. So like a DMX would have been probably the right person. He was in a couple of the, you know, the Seagal movies there before he died, and then or like a young 50 Cent when he did a few movies. Like, you know, it feels like who? Oh, Ludacris. I mean, Ludacris knocked out Michael Myers with his spin kicks. Oh,
that was Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, yeah. So if Busta Rhymes can fight Michael Myers, why can't he be in the next one? Steve said he mourns the Penitentiary break-in crossover we never got. I 100% would watch that movie too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Breaking. If you guys, if anyone in the chat hasn't seen Breaking 2, I just have to say it's a near perfect movie. Like I mean, a man gets brought back to life by breakdance in it.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed by, and there's Vegas showgirls that just show up as nurses in that scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just when the cars start breakdancing at the beginning, like there's actually cars that start bouncing, and I don't think anybody's in them at the time.
Yeah,
just the power of music.
Yeah, it's an amazing. Both of them are great, but yeah, and I love it because like I feel that there's two times that canon led culture versus being led to it. It's probably Enter the Ninja and Breaking are the two times that they were somewhat ahead of the curve versus like, we need to get out.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. That's definitely them.
Yeah, we need to get out. What'd you say?
I said that's them being slightly ahead of the gun at both situations.
Versus we need to get out a Forbidden Dance movie. And we need to defeat each other, which is a whole other story. Right. The two sides of canon are fighting to get out a Forbidden Dance movie on the same weekend.
Yeah, that would be the double feature that everyone would rebel against if you did the Lambada double feature.
Oh, I don't know if anybody's ready for it yet.
Yeah. Other than Richard Lynch and Sid Haig, and you get some good cast members in those, but you also get a whole lot of Lambada.
I totally forget that Richard Lynch is in that. I always joke about.
How could you forget about Richard Lynch?
I never. But I always joke that there's certain people that never, like Donald Pleasance never said no. I don't think Richard Lynch said no either. I think he was like, just okay. That's fine.
Austin, did you have some more show and tell for us? I thought I remembered you saying you had something.
Oh, for Penitentiary, I can read off another script
Oh yeah.
from the TV ads.
I thought there was another one. Yeah, read that other one.
Yeah, I've got another one. This is, so I read the humorous ad that they recommended if you wanted to have a. But here's the tough. This one's called Tough Attitude, and this one's also targeted, according to this, for teens and adults. December 1990. Some people just don't know when to quit. Get a soundbite. Nobody says no to Serengeti. They push and push and push till somebody comes along with the guts to push back. Too sweet. Now I'm ready to fight. For the first time on television, Leon Isaac Kennedy does the jailhouse rock in Penitentiary 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like a musical.
Again, this is the ad that they sent out along the photo that they sent out along with these wonderful scripts.
Beckett just yelled out from the back. He said, "That's the Penitentiary 3 that I wanted to see." What it was,
it is suggestive. It's definitely suggestive.
Yeah, it really feels like more of a Cool Hand Luke than we got. It feels like there's, and what's funny is in that script they mentioned that Serengeti keeps pushing people, and if you listen, you're like, "Oh yeah, Serengeti, I totally know that guy."
Here's the TV. If you were going to run a TV listing, the ads that Canon sent around. Again, it's Midnight Thud choking out Too Sweet. This is the war is on. But yeah, it just doesn't fit those scripts. Sam,
I wonder who used those. Like how many stations use those?
I'm curious. Is with your marketing background, Sam, like
it'd be like the newspaper, if they ran it in the weekly.
I spent a year once doing a billboard for True Value Hardware because they're all franchised, and we spent a year back and forth with the client. We spent all this money to shoot it, and then nobody ever used it. Like I asked, like 6 months later, they're like, "Yeah, nobody ever bought it." It was like literally a year of my life doing this billboard. So yeah, it's upsetting when that happens. I would imagine someone did. It's funny. We were watching some old wrestling from Texas on YouTube this week, and it was a syndicated channel, so there was an ad for dolls that was cut and had like local voiceover talking about these scary dolls are coming to channel 27 in Texas. It was like over top of it with the dolls footage, and I'm like, man. So I would imagine that station definitely played Penitentiary 3. It feels like a movie that fit that channel. Or in Pittsburgh, it would have been 22 probably, Bill. It seems like they probably would have played Penitentiary.
Definitely. I think that was the first place I ever saw Penitentiary 2 was on syndicated afternoon TV. Yeah, believe it or not.
Oh, man.
One of Bill Mudron, I believe. I'm butchering his name on Twitter, but he just posted a screen cap of Fox 53 out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Showing 52 pickup on there.
Oh my god!
Wow, because 53 broadcast where I lived up in near Youngstown. That we got it all the way up there. That was our Fox affiliate out of Pittsburgh.
Wow.
So that was where I watched my Simpsons back in the.
My wife got it on cable, right? You got it in a cable package, right?
No. The towers were strong enough where we were.
Okay, so you picked it up as a UHF channel.
Yeah, over the air. That's
amazing because that's how we watched it, and now you could get it everywhere. It's like on a cable tier, but you used to have to put a wire hanger in the antenna sometimes to get a good picture.
Aluminum foil on the tips and really put it out so you could get the channel.
Yeah, we were pretty. We had a pretty fancy. We never had cable, but we had the antenna on top of the roof, the gigantic one that turned when you switched the little box, and it would just make the grinding noise as it moved that you could hear all the way like 2 floors down.
It's very sci-fi.
Yeah.
My wife had to go to a dentist in McKeesport once, and he had a print ad for when 53 used to show SCTV. And it said starring Pittsburgh's the guy's Count Floyd, and she hated this, and it was a horrible dentist. And I'm like, to this day, I'm like, why didn't I just steal that off the wall? We were never going back. And like he had a ton of old 53 print ads around his office. And I was like, man, I should have taken it. The 53 did show a lot of wild stuff. I know I definitely saw Zora the Gay Blade at 2 a.m. on it. That's what I was. I definitely saw that because they had an ad. I always talk about it, had an ad for. Thanks, Chris. It was Joe Flaherty. Yeah, it had an ad for Penthouse on it, and my mom literally leapt up and covered the TV. She was like, nobody gets to see this.
It was too much.
Amazing that Penthouse had TV ads. Like how it was like the National Enquirer ads that they had for a while too, where it was like trying to sell the issue. But yeah, I love this movie, and it's a lot of fog. It's got like a Fulci level of fog in the basement there.
Yeah, you ducked out for a little bit. I was saying, I was like, this really needs a Blu-ray release just so I can tell what's going on in that whole last like fight that takes up it feels like the last quarter of the movie.
I felt the same way about Fulci's Conquest, and it came out, and there's been numerous Blu-rays, and if anything, there's more fog. It would become more obscure. Like,
higher definition fog.
Yeah, it's like special penitentiary glasses we'll have to create so that you can like get through the fog with sharp
3D penitentiary.
3D. Oh, I mean,
why not?
Again, she should be on the show. Her comment, she said 1D was fine for her tonight. She's good. 1D penitentiary.
Here's another thing we forgot to mention is that Tyler Mane was offered this film. I pulled this little news piece out. It was an interview with him when he was a wrestler. And what was his name, Sam?
He was Big Sky. Was one of his names, yeah.
He said he was offered Penitentiary 3, and he said, I turned it down because it went against my upbringing. They wanted me to hand out cocaine and things like that. I've never touched drugs, and I never will. Like, what?
And he was in a Rob Zombie movie, so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's apparently lowered his standards a little since then.
Well, I like the next line. The other one was Superman. I love when wrestlers do interviews because it's always the most bullshit stuff. Like, I was making $2 million a week and I walked away. Like, no, you didn't.
No. That's not a real thing.
Yeah, no, it's not a real thing. The line between exploitation actors talking about their career in wrestling is very in the middle of the Venn diagram. We're like right there. I was almost in Superman. I mean, he could have been in Superman 4, to be fair. Anything could have happened. He could have been Nuclear Man in Superman 4. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anything else we should say about Penitentiary 3 before we talk about Hercules?
Just I guess real quick, the one thing that anybody wondering where the Midnight Thud came from, when I interviewed Leon Isaac Kennedy for the second volume, he talked a lot about his career. I got a lot of great long conversation, but very little of it was actually about Penitentiary 3. His memory was this was a very rushed, very low budget production, which you can see on screen in big canon. But he had said the most frustrating thing, because he was also a producer, working basically serving as a producer's capacity on it. It was very frustrating for him because the very first day of shooting, they were all in this prison, and most of the people who were there for the movie were all there. And Jama didn't show up. And it was because he was out with Raymond Kessler, the guy who played the Midnight Thud, in like a field somewhere, like in a farm outside of LA, filming a backstory, basically flashbacks for the Midnight Thud, because he was supposed to have this whole background where he was a tunnel rat in Vietnam. And so basically Jama Fanaka and the Midnight Thud missed the first day of filming while like the rest of the crew was just standing around waiting for the people to show up, because they were out in a field somewhere shooting Vietnam flashbacks that they didn't even use for the movie and I guess weren't scripted. And it was very frustrating to Leon at the time. So
when this gets Vinegar Syndrome re-release, that's definitely what needs to be on it, is what you're saying.
Yes. So if anybody's wondering if there's any information about where the Midnight Thud came from, I do know that at least Jama thought he was a tunnel rat in Vietnam and filmed a flashback scene on the first day of shooting.
Wow. That is amazing. Yes, Danny Trejo was in this very briefly. And also, PCP is the magical knockout drug of boxing. In case you're wondering, like, you know, he got some too. Yeah. So I love this movie. Now I'm super excited about Hercules. Obviously, it's one of my favorite. Like Luigi Cozzi is one of my favorite directors. Obviously, but this movie has an even crazier between this and Adventures of Hercules and Sinbad. All have insane canon level stories. Even how Hercules happened, right? And so, you know, obviously, once Conan was made in a lot more of these movies because it's and cycles of how exploitation movies happen where, you know, one happens, a movie comes out and suddenly 80 movies come out within that genre. And that had already happened with the first Hercules, the Steve Reeves Hercules. There were millions of Pebble movies. So Italy was already ready to get back on this trend. Like they were like, yeah, we can just make these same movies. Again, we know what we're doing. But this one, I'll let Austin get into it, but I know this starts with a totally different movie, right? Seven Magnificent Gladiators.
Yes, Seven Magnificent Gladiators. I mean, by the title alone, you can tell it's what it is, a gladiator themed like ripoff of it's the Magnificent Seven, and a movie that I feel is pretty fun. It's got a great like mustache twirling villain in it. It's got Sybil Danning and Lou Ferrigno. It's really not bad, but it is a movie that Cannon hated. The Golden Globus saw the footage. It was shot in Italy with a lot of Italian actors and did not think was releasable. And one of the things that they did was they brought in Luigi Cozzi, who they'd originally done. They had picked up the rights to Alien Contamination. I'm trying to think of what the other titles are for that. His Aliens type movie. And Cannon had recut it and done a different version of it. And there's some great footage on YouTube of like Menachem like re-editing that movie. That's fun to find, or at least a trailer for it. But they brought in Luigi to do Space Vampires, Life Force, as we were discussing earlier, and eventually they brought him on because they brought him over to look at Seven Magnificent Gladiators. So they knew he had a lot of experience working with a lot of these Italian actors in the Italian industry, and went to ask him if he could fix it up. And he wasn't really keen on it. But the thing was, Hercules was already in the pipeline. They were going to make a Hercules movie. That was part of their deal, signing on Lou Ferrigno. Lou Ferrigno was somebody who, of course, the Hulk. But the reason why he got to Hulk size is going back to the Steve Reeves movies. He was a kid who grew up with a very high percentage, almost deaf. He could barely hear, and he got teased a lot for it. And it was one of the situations where that's what drove him to go to the gym and go from being a little scrawny kid to the Incredible Hulk, literally the Incredible Hulk. Like he is. You look at pictures of him next to Arnold Schwarzenegger, or even Pumping Iron, but you look at their pictures, and he makes Arnold Schwarzenegger look small during like the Pumping Iron period because he is such a gigantic, ripped human being. I'm sorry for going off on a tangent here, but I was just like, what's the old comic book ads?
Oh, Charles Atlas.
Yes. Like, I think of Lou Ferrigno, like young Lou Ferrigno, is very much that like kid getting the sand kicked in their face, and then like 3 panels later is just a gigantic human being. But he went and saw the Steve Reeves movies, and so Hercules was like his hero growing up. And so after the Incredible Hulk, he kind of wanted to take a next step, become a movie star after being a TV star that had to be painted green and kind of just yelled and grunted and shouted. Didn't really get to act, but he wanted to make this step, and Hercules was going to be it. So he signed on to do these 2 movies with Cannon, a Magnificent Seven like gladiator peplum type movie, and Hercules. And the original version of Hercules that Cannon was going to do was kind of interesting because it was supposed to be a hard R, like Conan the Barbarian style, with nudity and violence and Lou he hated that. He hated that idea. He wanted it to be something that kids could see. Cannon had a habit between him and Chuck Norris having these
Yeah, I was gonna say.
two actors that made these really violent movies and would then go on about not really liking making violent movies because kids like them, and it's weird. But anyways, it ended up eventually Luigi Cozzi took over Hercules because they were unhappy with the director who did Seven Madness and Gladiators. They basically fired him, and
Bruno Mattei.
yes, thank you, Bruno Mattei.
That's one of my favorites, and Claudio Fragasso too.
Yeah, Bruno Mattei, who probably was not going to be the guy to direct a like children's Hercules movie. Not the best choice.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But Luigi got the job because he pitched it to Cannon as Superman. He was going to make a Superman style movie. He was going to take this Greek or this mythological hero and put him in a movie that looked like one of the Christopher Reeve Superman films. And that's really where it got going. Cannon loved the idea. The Superman theme, you can hear it in the theme music for Hercules. You can hear probably where you can hear the Superman influence the most. It sounds like the Superman music, almost indistinguishable to my ears. But it was filled with special effects, and Cannon was excited about that. And you got some cool stop motion in here. You've got a incredible cast of spaghetti Western actors and exploitation actors. A lot of like Argento veterans. You've got William Berger, who plays such a delightfully hammy villain in this. It's a really good cast. Sam was saying this, but if you are any student or fan of Italian exploitation movies, you are going to recognize everybody in this movie.
Yeah, and it's funny when they talk about this in the Canon, they're like, they call this movie a smoke show. There's like not an unattractive person in this entire cast.
No,
it's like the best looking people from Italian movies and all within it. And and as Chris brought up, Mirella D'Angelo from Tenebre's in here.
Yeah,
and they're really cagey with like she's both a male and female, god, and she's a god of technology.
That's somebody else. Who is that? Because Mirella D'Angelo plays Hercules' love interest in this.
I'm thinking the other one.
Yes, I am.
The girl from Tenebrae. This the other one. That's the girl who is in the flashback in Tenebrae. She plays. Yeah. Eva Robin.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, and Claudio Casanelli is Zeus in here, and there's tons of great people in here. Sybil Danning's in it, and Sybil Danning and Lou hated each other by this point.
Yeah, I love because they went to the Cannes Film Festival in '82, I think, as guests of Cannon, maybe '83, before they started shooting Magnificent Gladiators and Hercules, and they took these amazing photo shoots. You've got Lou and Sybil Danning like laying on like these beautiful rugs posed. You've got a great shot of Lou. He's got his muscle and he's got the bicep, and like Sybil Danning's doing a pull up on his like arm. And it's just these, you look at these and like, this is going to be like, they have great chemistry. They're clearly getting along, but that must have been the last moment that they actually got along, because Sybil, throughout her entire press tour for like this movie and like the next 2 years, because she was making so many movies in like the mid 80s, but she would be on the cover of Femme Fatale magazine. She was in Playboy like this time, and in every one she is just talking about like what a prude Lou was. Yeah, and that's his supposed problem. She had nothing ever good to say about him. And one of the things was on Seven Magnificent Gladiators that she was supposed to be one of the gladiators in the movie. She was supposed to be one of the seven like badasses that comes together to like help save the day. And according to her, like 'cause these are stories that aren't corroborated by really anybody else except for Sybil Danning. Lou was not okay with her being a woman being like one of these tough guys, being one of the men. And so in that movie, she is, I guess, technically one of them, but she's kind of just there to like pass them weapons and like stand in the back. And I could believe it because I would also like believe her story because you've got Sybil Danning there, and Sybil Danning should be kicking ass when she's on screen in one of these movies. She's not really one of your like supporting
Exactly.
women characters.
How could you expect that from Sybil Danning to stand
Yeah.
there?
Lou should have been in a movie with Sho Kosugi where they just kept women down and wouldn't let them be here.
She was just on our show a couple weeks ago. We watched Howling 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
More
Yeah.
Sybil. But
Yeah. By the time they got around to Hercules, she was supposed to play the love interest. Like she was supposed to play Morella D'Angelo's like role. And because like Lou and her were not getting along really, like they had to write her into a part where she was basically not really on screen much with him, and also like the bad guy, and Lou's wife ends up coming in and sort of like taking a like extra good guy role in this. And so it's funny because like Lou does not talk about these movies much out, like even when they were coming out, he didn't do a ton of press except for like the very first one. But like Sybil, like for the next 3 years, like anybody who had her in any magazine, she, no matter what movie she was promoting, like it seems like there was like she had to like just squeeze in how shitty Lou Ferrigno was to her.
It's funny because it feels like the canon actors that were successful, you know, like we just talked about Lee and Isaac Kennedy, like that barnstormed their movies and went crazy for press. And that's how Chuck Norris was so successful at first, where he worked really hard for his first 3 or 4 movies. You know, he didn't, not that he didn't have to work hard after, but like he did his own press for so many of those movies and got his name out there. Like they really have a lot of like grassroots kind of stars versus stars waiting to become stars. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's what's interesting that Lou didn't push for that. One of my friends has a really sad Lou Ferrigno story where we were just talking about it, where he went to a convention and literally the first convention he went to, he was 3 months old and his dad brought him and took a picture of him and Lou together. And he got it blown up and made a big print of it. He told Lou the whole story about how, you know, his whole life he and his dad had bonded about the Hulk, and, you know, Lou's been their favorite star. And he goes, "Oh, cool, great, $40 for the autograph." That was the whole. But hey, you know what? You're doing that many. Lou's the king of conventions, really. He does tons of them. So
yeah.
So bring all your Hercules posters to make him mad.
His like he's actually, I think you can still, it might be up on eBay still. He was selling off his Hercules costume, and it's just one of those listings because it's like $4,000 or something crazy like that. That's just been permanently on eBay for like 4 or 5 years, like renewing at that price. And it's Lou's personal, like trying to auction it off, sell it off himself.
He's not going to take. He doesn't have best offer up there. He's taking $4,000 or nothing. I think the thing I love about this movie so much is, well, the first 15 minutes of it is going to have some of the most berserk stuff. Like most movies, like do the roller coaster thing where, you know, like James Bond movies start with something big, ramp down, and then get big again. This movie really never ramps down. Like it starts with a baby choking snakes, a bear gets punched into the moon, and you're like, I don't know if this movie can get any better, and it keeps getting better, and that's why I love it so much. It does not slow down, and also, I love that Luigi Cosi did the stop motion kind of stuff in it, and the tease is why they look so kind of jerky is, well, they're clockwork robots, and that's how they look, and they don't look perfect. So I love that, and he did the same thing in Star Crash. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in Star Crash that happens. So this has that same kind of feel, and it's just his movies are fun. He's very in love with movies, obviously, and this one does not start with a shout out to Edgar Allan Poe like Sinbad does, which I still haven't completely figured out yet. Yeah. But I know Poe did write a Sinbad story, but none of that ties together. But and this is something else, and I'm sure we'll get into it in the next segment. The sequel is even the story behind the sequel is my favorite canon story because how it's literally Bowfinger. That I don't want to tease any more than that. It's the craziest thing that it happened, and it's a real world thing that happened. But this was a movie definitely of the canon stuff. This is probably, I would say, probably one of the first canon movies I saw, and it was on cable. It definitely played in the drive-in in my neighborhood, and it's a perfect drive-in movie to me because just a lot of stuff happens. You can kind of come in and out of it, and it looks great. I think for the budget, and it definitely is, like you said, it's Superman as Hercules, or Hercules as Superman, whatever way you want to take it.
I saw it on cable.
Yeah,
that was the first place I ever saw it. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but it's played fairly straight, isn't it? Like, I remember thinking it was deadly serious, and the whole time I was thinking this could be like the sequel to Flash Gordon that we never got.
Yeah.
If it was jokey, but it wasn't. Yeah. It was just like played straight.
Yeah.
Lou is dubbed in this, which if you know Lou's voice, like it's definitely not his. It's the same voice actor who dubbed Franco Nero in Enter the Ninja. Doing almost the same voice, like not the Texan accent, but if you're used to Franco Nero and Enter the Ninja, you'll recognize Lou's voice in this. But Lou didn't know he was being dubbed. That's one of the things that until he got to the premiere and was watching it and was like just heartbroken to see that that he had been completely dubbed over and not told. But he actually rode to the premiere in a chariot. That's pretty cool.
Oh man.
Down through like in Hollywood out to whatever theater they were showing it at. He rode a chariot through. Canon hired an actor to show up as a cop and give Lou Ferrigno a ticket for driving like his chariot to the premiere, and that's like ended up being like as a press gimmick. It ended up getting some news coverage, like Lou Ferrigno in his Hercules costume getting handed a ticket by a cop.
So how about we look at some images, some ads for Hercules?
I'm excited to see these.
Well, you can see what made me think of Flash Gordon is this
definitely
that they came up with. Really just pushing this whole like action hero thing, and they made no bones about the fact that we will see sci-fi in this film.
Yeah.
Here's some context for when it was released. Rocky III was in theaters. Here's a drive-in showing. Check out this one with Conan the Barbarian and Tarzan the Ape Man.
Oh my god! Notably, Tarzan the Ape Man is on last.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I that's just on a whole other level.
Also, Last American Virgin.
Yeah.
Another one.
What's Hot and Bothered?
Oh, I do not know.
Not familiar to me.
I don't know what that is. Anyway, here's some more graphics for Hercules. They really had a lot of variation. I found a lot of these smaller ads for the film that cut the press book apart in interesting ways.
Yeah.
Lou Ferrigno's
Staying Alive and then Hercules.
They were really banking on Ferrigno. Like, they were building him up to be a big star.
Well, they were hoping to go from this straight into Sinbad 3D.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it opened. I forgot to mention the film opened in where is it? I lost my place. It was like at the end of August 1983 was when it first started playing theatrically. August 26th, I believe, was the exact date. And but that was this was sort of like an everywhere movie. The last one rolled out over time. This one was playing everywhere.
This was an MGM handled this release, so
yeah,
a nice big wide lots of prints out there.
Sam, are you looking at the screen?
Yeah, I was just speechless by this triple feature. This is like a dream night at the movies for me.
Yeah, this is a hell of a night at the drive-in. The
I mean, that is. If we could recreate that at the drive-in next year at the World Monsterama, I would be beyond happy.
Here it is in San Francisco, third week.
Whoa!
Do you know what the box office take was for this, Austin? Like, did this perform well for them?
Not offhand, but it did. It did. They were satisfied.
Enough to make a sequel, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they actually shot the sequel before this hit theaters, so they were happy with the footage. But I think when the sequel kind of failed to gain the traction, and that slowed down the Sinbad plans. But
which is a whole other story.
Yeah,
a whole other.
He was going to be their Schwarzenegger. I think that's what Canon really thought they had in him.
Wow. It's funny that you mentioned about Lou being bullied because there's that scene in Pumping Iron where they go to breakfast and it's like Lou's mom and his trainer and Arnold's psyching out Lou so badly. And he's like, is your trainer going to screw you up again this year? And he keeps like kind of hitting on Lou's mom. It's really funny. And like, it's just Arnold being Arnold. Like Arnold's so animated and he's already the Arnold that he's going to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Lou's so shy and so worried about it and like so like amped up about stuff. It's a really amazing scene.
Yeah.
It makes me feel kind of bad for Lou, but I'm also way on Arnold's side. So like Arnold's like one of those action heroes that can do no wrong in my world.
Right.
So, yeah. So all right, we're gonna make the Rum Lewis coats, which is a Rum Lewis. So I figured it was a pretty good one. So this is going to be pretty fancy here. Also, if you haven't, I mean, I've probably said it every week of the show, but Luigi Cozzi is one of my all-time favorite directors. Star Crash is one of the first movies I remember to drive in. And we're starting with an ounce of orange juice here. And we showed Contamination already, and Contamination is a wonderful movie. We're doing an ounce of grapefruit juice, which I bought just for this drink. Let me tell you, grapefruit juice in Pittsburgh, who knew that it was this hard to find? But you wouldn't think. But we had to go to 3 stores to find it.
Yeah, the grocery store is always an adventure when I'm hunting down the ingredients for these drinks you make.
I know. I should have made it simpler. I realize. We're going to do an ounce of pineapple juice. Oh.
That Canon shirt needs full screen, Sam.
Yeah, it does. And also, if you're wondering, are Austin and Sam wearing the same shirt? Yes.
Yeah.
Twin it up this week on the show.
I didn't get the text. Sorry.
I know. And we're going to do a juice of 1 lemon. Also, if you guys haven't listened to it, the Canon is a great podcast. If you guys love Canon films. And Austin, you're picking all the movies for next month, right?
Yes. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but one of the movies that we watched tonight is one of their the picks for next month. So if you're familiar with the Canon, you know which of the 2 movies they haven't covered yet.
Oh man, I'm excited. We're doing a juice of a whole lemon here. Then we're gonna do an ounce of light rum and an ounce of dark rum, and we're gonna shake it up. Oh man. This is a fancy drink. This drink would probably cost you like $12 at the bar, right? I had a corpse survivor the other night at a fancy bar downtown, Bill, in Pittsburgh, and it was $12. And I was like, you know what? I haven't had a drink that I haven't made myself in a long time, so this is totally worth it. Also, Bill, Chad cooked my meal, so you would have been super excited to go.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't you call me?
I almost, when he came out to check if our food was good, I almost just made a video of it to send you, and I thought I'd have to explain it. It would have been a little weird.
I thought you were good people.
I am good people. We're going to shake this up. And then we're going to pour it over ice. crushed ice, no less. Oh. This is the part of bar rescue I'm still trying to figure out. The pour, like when you pour from here into ice, I always end up screwing it up. That wasn't too bad.
Gwen Stefani's sister would set you straight about that if she could come to your house and give you.
Oh, there was one that was on the other night where this one bartender just kept screwing stuff up, and it made me so nervous for this guy. I felt so bad for him. I actually got like stressed from it. But
I admit I took the shortcut and I just poured some Kraken into a Coke. So I'm way ahead of you.
We're going to put orange slices on it, and then we're going to get some maraschino cherries and put in there. And that's it. That's it for the Lewis Coates Ricky. I should have made this in my what do you call it? My deep red cup from Luigi Cozy's store, but that cup's too small for this big drink. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it, Cozy's last movie, Blood on Melly's Moon, is crazy. He made it himself, and it's all about the silent movie First Men on the Moon and how no one knows who actually invented film. And it's kind of like his multiverse of madness with multiple versions of Luigi Cozy going to different dimensions to solve a murder. It's really weird. The only place that you can get it is from his store. So he touched the one that I have. So I feel like there's some kind of magical connection with that, which makes me really happy. So we put these away, and then we'll do a little.
I love your background, Austin.
Oh, thanks. I got Sinbad and America 3000.
Sinbad has been threatening you all night, and it's making me nervous.
By the way, Austin, I am obsessed now. You told me the last time we hung out about America 3000 that no one has the correct audio on that movie, and it's never been released.
Yeah, that's another. Bill and I were talking a little bit about that, about cuts of movies that should exist. So, America 3000 was released in theaters with a different audio than has been on every home video release. When they went to, so the director David Engelbach had done a whole different audio with different voiceover, different music. And that was on the theatrical prints. But when they went and made the home video prints, they went from the original one before he redid it. And so it's the incorrect audio, and it's the DVD that's come, the rental copy has come out, the DVD that's come out have all been wrong. So Vinegar Syndrome or whoever, if you're listening, like, just get a theatrical print and let us all finally find out what that what the movie's supposed to sound as.
And you're showing a bunch of movies at the Mahoning pretty soon too, right?
Yeah, actually, at the end of August, so the 26th, 27th, and 28th, they're doing an action weekend. Exhumed Films is doing it. And the first night is they're showing The Warriors with a couple of the Warriors there present. And they're showing Hard Times and The Driver. So all three Hill movies, which is pretty cool. But for Cannon fans, the Saturday night is Commando, but then followed by Ninja 3: The Domination and Kickboxer, which is a hell of a triple lineup. And Sunday is a 2-hour straight presentation of Cannon trailers. So all on 35 millimeter. I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what they actually have for that reel that they've cut together of Cannon trailers. So yeah, I'll be there that weekend. Signing books, introing the Cannon movies and the trailer night, and just hanging out, answering Cannon questions for anybody that has them.
That's amazing.
The Mahoney's a great place.
Yeah, cheers for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Pazuzu.
Cheers.
Oh,
I love the vibe at the Mahoning so much.
Luigi Cozy is a strong drink, by the way. Just as a warning.
It's a beautiful drink.
I was not prepared for how strong Luigi Cozy was going to be, and very strong.
That there should have been some kind of umbrella sticking out of that or something.
Yeah, I do like that John said that bartending comes from the gut. So he is. Someone should be opening these drawers and hitting me in the stomach over and over again.
Becca,
They make him like prep me for like penitentiary bartending.
with one hand she's hitting you with the drawer, with the other she's like drying her nails or something.
Yeah. I got to tell you, it was a whole different world in Anthony Geary's cell. Like, Becca's like, is that the same prison? I guess.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
You're waiting for his friend to start talking backwards.
Oh yeah, exactly. It feels like, is this Canada? It feels just like it. He also looks a lot like Ray Wise in it. You know, like he looks like Leland Palmer a little bit in the way he's made up. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
pretty amazing. Anthony Geary for the next David Lynch project. Let's bring him back.
Could happen.
Not that he's gone anywhere. Man, I am so excited I'd just like to know in the side here in the chat, if you guys have seen Hercules before or if you haven't, let us know. I'm excited.
Do we want to talk about how the sequel came together before?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. It's a crazy story.
Just in case anyone passes out before the end of the night. But yeah, so these two, Lou had shot 2 movies for Canon. He had shot The Seven Magnificent Gladiators, which they shelved, was unreleasable, one of the few unreleasable Canon movies in Golden Globus's eyes. And he shot Hercules, which Canon was thrilled with. This was going to be a huge success for them, they felt. And so they asked Luigi if, while he was there, if he could try to fix the Seven Magnificent Gladiators, like if they could just get into shape, add some special effects, do some cool stuff. And he said, sure. So he shot 2 weeks with Lou, because it's very cheap to get, I guess, for an actor to come back to do scenes, to like reshoots and things like that, compared to shooting a new movie. They just paid for Lou's hotel room in Rome a little longer, and they shot some extra stuff. Canon loved the footage that Luigi shot so much that they called him up. They're calling him from Rome to LA, and they say, hey, Luigi, we love your footage, but rather than jam it into this other movie, what if you got half an hour footage in the 2 weeks, if we gave you another 2 weeks of footage and we told Lou it was for these reshoots, you'd have a full hour's worth of footage. But it's not, we're going to tell Lou it's for reshoots. It's actually going to be for a Hercules 2. Can you make it into a Hercules 2? So Luigi Cosi, being a brilliant madman, absolutely like a genius in his way, takes these like 30 minutes of footage that was supposed to be for a Seven Magnificent Gladiators, and now has to write them into his Hercules script, like into a Hercules sequel, but that doesn't look like a Hercules sequel. The thing was, they also had the stipulation, they got Lou for 2 more weeks, so he was thinking he was here for 4 weeks of reshoots. They shot basically what was going to be Hercules 2, but no one could tell Lou what they were doing.
Or his wife too, right? Because she was there as well.
Right. They had to keep it a secret. But luckily his name is like Han in Seven Magnificent Gladiators, so he's got this belt with an H on it, so it could also stand for Hercules. If Hercules has like a little Ninja Turtles belt with his like initial on it throughout the entire movie. So Lou shoots 4 weeks worth of footage, thinking that he's shooting basically an entirely new version of Seven Magnificent Gladiators, and goes home. And that's when Luigi calls back William Berger and all of the and Eva Robbins and all of the Hercules actors, all the important people that you need to shoot a Hercules sequel, and shoots all of their scenes, all of their footage, and cuts it together into a Hercules 2. The ending of that movie is the battle, of course, because you can't have Lou fighting the villain from the first Hercules movie without him figuring out, wait a second, this isn't what I think it is. So the last battle of that movie is like a bunch of like basically rotoscope scenes from like King Kong and like other stuff.
Yeah, it's a laser King Kong fighting a dinosaur. Yeah,
and it's just
gaslighting Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, when I talked to Luigi about it, I'm like, you actually shot a second Hercules movie without Lou figuring out he was ever in it. And they're like, yeah, they had to tell him eventually. He was explaining, he's like, that wasn't my job, that was canon. Like, they had to tell him, and they basically gave him enough money where he didn't feel bad, but he was also like, he was pretty embarrassed at that point, like that he had been tricked into it and fallen for it. So I guess they didn't give him as much money as they would have given him to actually like shoot a sequel had he known it. So Canon got out of it cheaper. But yeah, so Hercules 2 is a sequel to Hercules that the star did not know he was making it. It's crazy.
And then Canon calls it The Adventures of Hercules, which confuses everybody because they're like, which one comes first?
Yes, Hercules 2, The Adventures of Hercules.
Yeah. And it's just all over the place. And
next to Missing in Action 2, The Beginning, like
yeah, Canon never made a movie and then decided it was the original and not the sequel before. That's what I always consider Canon, like the content provider kind of thing. That streaming systems now, they're like, it's a constant need for content, and Canon got that way before anyone else. Where they'd be like, you know what? Nobody knows that this is isn't the first movie. Let's make it the second movie. And let's flip these around, and it's like, okay, and it worked. Especially in Missing in Action, it worked way better the way they did it.
Yeah, Canon people. I mean, back in the day, especially when newspapers and like the trades would write about them, they would laugh at the box office numbers because they'd spend 10 million on a movie and it would make 1 million at the box office. But the thing was, they didn't care what the box office was. They were making movies that they'd already sold to cable. They'd sold to video that were playing in Italy and Germany and Spain and everywhere else. And so
they had already made the money before the movie even got shot.
Yeah, they had made more than usually it was about once they had made double of what they were going to spend on the money, they would send it into production. So great business model.
It's too bad they didn't stick to it. I mean,
yes.
They literally would have stuck around forever.
They would be doing great in this period, like this era.
Yeah. They'd be like, you need 60 movies in a month? Yeah, I mean, a year, we can do that. We've done it before.
Yeah.
Austin, you've put a hell of a lot of work into your books. You've really got to have a big passion for writing about canon. Like, are you obsessed with canon? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's been described as an unhealthy obsession, probably by some friends and family, but I mean, I couldn't ask for better subject matter. I justify it to myself as a form of preservation. I guess that I'm doing my small part to help keep this art, what I consider art, alive. Because as silly as some of these movies are, as bad as some of them are, they're entertaining, and that's a movie's job. If it entertains you, nothing else matters. It's coming out ahead. But canon it's something now, especially since they had a habit of working with people who were kind of on the downturn of their career and also a little later. So when you're looking at like 40-ish years average, probably since most of these movies were shot, and if those guys were in their 40s, late 40s, 50s when they were making these movies, I'm trying to do what I can to get as many of these stories as I can now before there's no chance to actually before they disappear. So I love it though. I couldn't ask for a more fun subject matter. If I'm going to watch something like 5 times in a row to write about it, it's got to be Penitentiary 3 or something like that. Like, I can't ask. I couldn't imagine a more fun company to write about.
I think the amazing thing too is about them that I picked up from the books is most people today, like, and at the time too, especially scoffed at canon because they put out, a lot of not considered great movies, but yet like their great movies are incredibly great. Like Maria's Lovers is a great movie. Runaway Train's great. Barfly's great. And they took chances they gave directors money that were independent directors that would have never had the most money and sometimes the most freedom that they had in their careers.
Mm-hmm. They did. A lot of the movies they made were projects that everyone else said no to. And they also gave people careers that probably would never have had them, that that definitely deserved them. And again, like, still there's a lot of canon DNA in the current landscape. If you look at like a company like Millennium, they're all ex-canon people at this point. There's still like that canon family tree is still very, very alive in our current especially in the action era, area of movies.
I can't think of another studio that could have made Tough Guys Don't Dance.
No.
Or that would give a chance on it, which is especially my favorite thing is whenever I'm down, I always watch a lot of trailers, but the trailer with Norman Mailer shitting on every critic of that movie and and talking about that he's the devil and stuff. Like it's an amazing trailer.
I have piles and piles of old canon catalogs, and like they'll trade in the trade magazines, they would take out like 40, 50, 60 page spreads, and you look at them and you can flip through them and it'll be a 2-page ad for Delta Force. And the very next 2-page ad will be for Franco Zeffirelli directing Placido Domingo and Otello, like a 2.5 hour long opera movie. And it's incredible that the same company in like the same trailer reel or something can be promoting both the Delta Force and a 2.5 hour opera, or like Mikhail Baryshnikov in Dancers. Like, it's just such a crazy range of films that they put out.
And canon also feels like, we talk about it on the show a lot, is that the reason why exploitation and regional movies, we love them so much on this, is that there weren't a lot of rules. And these movies were made so fast that, sometimes, I may have come in and had a lot of changes, or completely taken over a movie like Enter the Ninja. But by and large, these movies were made so quickly that they didn't have a million notes like in the studio system that exists today. And I think that that's what's really cool about them. Plus that they're really shocking and surprising movies, and they feel closer to like, they are definitely a foreign spirit, but closer to the Italian side of movies for me. And that's why I love them so much.
There's a fine line between art and commerce. And these movies were made to make money. Like that's what it was. They were taking a gamble on budgeting any movie and betting that it would make money. So they tried a whole bunch of different things to make different kinds, to see what kind of money they probably made. But now we read a lot into these movies, and it's fun. It's fun to evaluate them, and they mean a lot to us on many levels. But to these folks that made them, a lot of times they weren't really thinking that much about the movies. They just wanted to get them made as well as they can and then get them out of there and make another one.
I love the hyperbole of the canon machine, though. Like the Delta Force ad that you brought up. Is that the one that says buy bigger theaters or make bigger theaters? Like that's how big of a deal that movie was going to be, that you would have to make your theater bigger for the audience you were going to have. That's what it was still going to be Bronson and Chuck, which would have been.
Yeah, I mean, all the early Life Force ads were the sci-fi event of the 1980s. Like they did not undersell anything they did. But
the seventh major studio, like that ad campaign was amazing. Yeah,
there's a certain like little tiny area where there's a crossover, and the where the magic happens, I think, the most in canon is when you have these sort of directors who work really well under pressure and can really do some ingenious stuff. And two of the best examples are Sam Furstenberg, who barely a bad movie in his entire run for canon, and like most of them are fantastic. And then Luigi Cozzi, who's someone who can really like make lemonade out of whatever like withered, awful lemons he's given.
And he did it again on Sinbad, which started as a Enzo Castellari TV series from his script. And then I love the fact of this movie that he got Daria Nicolodi and has her in his apartment with his daughter. And they shot the Princess Bride wraparound in like a half day. so that it
Yeah.
makes the whole movie. And they keep coming back to this like Princess Bride kind of story to somehow make footage that again Canon thought was unreleasable and make it work.
Right. Yeah, when there were many examples, I think, where some real magic came
Yeah.
about from having to shoot these movies incredibly fast and for with extremely limited resources, and the knowledge in the filmmakers and the producers' heads being like, we've already sold this. Like these like 20 distributors are expecting to have it by this time, so you have to give us something. So
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody enjoys Hercules, and we'll be back for the third segment and talk all sorts of stuff.
I was off getting the link to post into the chat.
Oh yeah, let's post it in there.
That's why I zoned out for a second. Sorry.
Oh no, but yeah, I'm really excited about this, and obviously, I love talking about cancer. It's been really rad to have Austin on and kind of go in depth on these movies.
Austin, it's amazing to have you on the program, and you're going to come back for the third segment, right?
I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be pretty darn late. I got to get my sister to the train back to New York at 7 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I don't think I'll make it that long. But
All right.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm really having a lot of fun here.
Awesome.
Good. It's been great having you on the program, and thanks very much for all your hard work in preserving it. I really loved what you said, because that's why we do what we do too. You know, like there's going to be a time when nobody talks about these movies anymore, or there might be a time where nobody talks about these movies anymore if we don't leave some kind of footprint. So it all helps to keep that memory alive. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you guys.
One of the great things now is thanks to like Tubi and other streaming things, it's easier to watch canon movies. But as I've learned from, there's some that Austin has that came out on a VHS in Greece. That's the only place it came out, and he has it. Do you know what I mean? So he's gone in depth on these movies and found some that never came out. Yeah, there's a Giallo that you really like that they made.
Camorra is wild, crazy movie, and that's actually I think coming somewhere soon. So
awesome.
Yeah, it won't be as unavailable as it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's been Vinegar Syndrome's been steadily releasing some stuff like Death Wish 2 and a few other films. So it's it's hard because the rights are all between the MGM ones and stuff. We're never going to get like the films of canon Blu-ray set. I mean, who knows? I mean, anything can happen. There's movies that are out in Blu-ray today that I can't believe are out. So, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the links in the chat for our second feature tonight, Hercules. And once again, thanks, Austin Trunick, for being on the program. Come back afterwards and hang out with us. We'll have some more to say about Hercules and who knows what else. We might even tell you what we're going to watch next weekend.
Oh, yeah.
See you then.